Welcome to Nick on Knicks, where your boy N.I.C rants about the latest Knicks news. Our New York Knicks lost game 2 at home to the upstart Detroit Pistons, 100-94. The Knicks now go to the Motor City to play the Pistons with this series. It's all tied up 1-1. Tough loss. The Knicks made a comeback in the fourth quarter, got within. They tied the game. And then Schroeder hits the three. Bridges misses the three. And the Knicks end up losing the game. Before we get into my thoughts, what I think, and I want to hear from you if you're checking us out on X, if you're checking us out on YouTube, throw some comments in there. Put some comments either in the live chat or put some comments under the video itself, and I promise you I will respond. I cannot promise it will be nice. But man, there's a lot to unpack from this game. There are a lot of opinions that a lot of people have. Some of those that I tried to fight for a very long time, but I'm starting to come around on. I'm starting to see what people have been saying. But before we get into that, let's get into some straight facts. Just some numbers from the game that I think are very interesting. Most of these have been talked about a lot in the last few days, so it shouldn't be news to any of you. But just I thought was a good place to start, and then we'll go from there. First and foremost, Karl Anthony Towns had 0 field goals and 0 points in the fourth quarter. Did not attempt a shot. OG Anunoby, 2 field goal attempts in the fourth quarter. The Knicks, throughout the game, were 0 for 10 on wide open threes. Mitchell Robinson played less than 90 seconds, a minute and 27 seconds in the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson played all but 6 seconds in the entire second half. And after being the most impactful player on the entire team in game 1, Cam Payne played a grand total of 4 minutes in the entire ball game and did not see the floor in the second half at all, game 2. So first and foremost, before I dive into what the Knicks did and didn't do, let's talk about the officiating, which was absolutely horrible. The refs were downright bad, especially in the first half. I mean, Cade Cunningham, as Tom Thibodeau said in his post-game presser, he gets calls that Brunson never gets. Karl Anthony Towns continues to get called for defensive fouls that when he is on the offensive end and similar contact is made, the whistle seems to be on mute. Brunson, I mean, at the end of the game, Brunson literally had welts on his face. His aunt went on X and she was like, I know Jalen is light skinned, but you can't be having my baby's face look like that. He's getting fouled in the second half. I think there was a bit of a correction, but the first half, I thought it was absolutely horrible. And down the stretch, again, Cade starts getting some of these calls that when it's Brunson, it's ruled incidental contact or marginal contact. But when it's Cade, he marches straight to the line. But over the course of the series, you're going to see, some ebb and flow with the calls. Tom Thibodeau, he went into the post-game presser. He went out there and he made sure that he let the NBA, the media, and the officials know how he felt about the officiating. Hopefully, that leads to some calls, swinging back our way. Ray Acosta, he was one of the officials from game 2. The Knicks overall this season have a 626 home win percentage. Not this season, but for the last 3 years. Over that same time span, when Acosta is the referee, the Knicks winning percentage is 300. Seems noteworthy to me. But at the end of the day, the officials are going to do what they have to do, and the players have to figure out a way to play through it. And I don't want to hear about the Knicks not being as aggressive because they got outscored in the paint 46-40. They were going to the hole. They were being aggressive. The whistle just wasn't blowing. It didn't go in our favor. Now, I'll be honest and say that in game 1, there was a couple calls. I wouldn't say overall, but there was a couple calls that I said to myself, Knicks got bailed out right there. I'll take that one. So, hey, sometimes you're going to get the whistle, sometimes you're not. As my father likes to always say, the calls typically go to the aggressor. I thought in game 2, even when the Knicks were being aggressive, they didn't get a fair whistle. And guess what? I'm biased. I'm a Knicks fan. But I can recognize when we do get a couple our way. So anyway, let's move on from that. So now this season, the series is tied 1-1. And we're going back to Detroit. The Knicks were 4-1 favorites before this series, according to Vegas. I thought that was a bit too wide of a spread personally. I've been nervous about playing specifically this Detroit team since back in, I don't know, January maybe. They set a record for the biggest jump from one year to another. Last year, worst team in the league. This year, the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Cade Cunningham is an emerging superstar. Malik Beasley led the NBA in 3-pointers made. They got Ausar Thompson. They got, Tobias Harris, who is been in this league for a long time, been a professional, gotten a lot of buckets. And the Knicks in game 1, hey man, they were able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat behind a 21-0 run in the 4th quarter. Don't get it twisted. The Knicks have been outplayed for 7 out of the 8 quarters in this series so far. They made a comeback in the 4th quarter of game 2. But at the end of the day, when it came to crunch time, the Pistons made the plays that they needed to make. The Knicks had miscommunications on defense. And the Pistons walk out of Madison Square Garden with a W. To start off the game, and especially in the first half, there was just way too many turnovers by the Knicks. I think the rebounding, the turnovers, the inability to hit shots, as I said before, 0 of 10 on wide open threes, all of those were major contributions to this loss. But specifically in the first half, the Knicks were being very, very lackadaisical with the ball, especially Jalen Brunson. The Knicks end up with 14 turnovers, which isn't a crazy number. But there was some big momentum turnovers. When we get a turnover and we're trying to run the ball back up the floor and we just give it away, I'm pretty sure it was Josh Hart. Those are big momentum plays in the course of a game. Pistons end up with 15 turnovers themselves. The Pistons couldn't shoot either. So that's where you have to take a step back and say, okay, did we lose because we couldn't hit a 3? Well, we shot 28.6%. The Pistons, they shot 22.2%. The Pistons are 1-1, and I don't feel like they've played their best basketball just yet. Hart has to stop leaving his feet to pass. As Clyde always says, that's the cardinal sin of basketball. And it's gotten to a point, and this is a theme that will come up a few times. Other teams have made adjustments. They know that Josh Hart, he is a runaway freight train in the open floor that you have to give ground and try to challenge him at the rim. And if you do so, once he gets up in the air, he will try to figure out what he wants to do or find somebody who's open and fire it in their direction. He himself has said as much on the Roommates podcast. He said, I just be getting up in the air and then trying to figure out what to do. Well, guess what, Josh? Team scouts around the league, they've heard you. And they have taught their players that this is what this guy likes to do. And now, much more often than we saw at the beginning of this season or last season, or since Josh Hart has been a Knick, those plays are ending up in turnovers. Brunson, as much as listen, Jalen Brunson named today to be the NBA clutch player of the league. He sometimes gets a little bit lackadaisical with the ball. It happens sometimes in big moments. I feel like it mostly happens in the first half, and he usually tightens up. But as our point guard, I know he doesn't average a ton of turnovers. I would still like him to be just a little bit more solid with the ball sometimes. We got to start with Josh Hart. For me, we got to start with Josh Hart. And I know a lot of people would say Karl Anthony Towns and his 0 field goal attempts in the fourth quarter is the place that, most people have the microscope on. But I think that Josh Hart and the way that he's used and the way that he's deployed has a lot to do with the way that Karl Anthony Towns is able to be defended when they're on the floor together. I've been saying for some time now that I think that Josh Hart would be better suited and the Knicks would benefit from him coming off of the bench. Our bench continues to be totally inept and they cannot score the ball. We had the worst bench all season. Offensively, they just struggle. They struggle to create shots. They struggle to make shots. Landry Shamet, he's not giving you much. He had a couple boneheaded plays in game 2. Deuce McBride, who I'm a huge fan of, he's not giving you much either. Deuce had a couple possible real huge momentum threes, a big 3 in the last couple minutes that if he's able to knock down, the whole game looks different. And this season, he's really, other than a heave 3-point shot off the glass, Deuce hasn't given you much. Ruzande, I see your comment. I promise you, we are getting to that. But really, man, when you take a step back and you look at this game and you look at the way that the Pistons are able to defend us, and this goes back to the first game that we played against Oklahoma City. Also, when we've played against the Celtics, teams have learned how to guard us when Josh Hart is on the floor. Josh Hart started off the season hot from 3. As we know as Knicks fans, Josh Hart sometimes he seems like he's an above average 3-point shooter for stretches. Before Josh Hart got traded to the Knicks from the Blazers, he was having a terrible year from 3. Then he got to the Knicks, and all of a sudden he started hitting threes. By the time we got to the playoffs, he was back to not hitting threes. Last year, during the season, couldn't hit a 3. Last year in the playoffs, starts hitting threes again. this year starts off the season. He's hot from three. We think maybe, hey, Josh Hart did some work in the offseason. This is the guy he's going to be now. He's going to be a guy up in those upper 30s. Dare I say maybe even low 40s with how he was looking at the beginning of the season. And then as the season continues, he regresses back to the guy that he typically is. And teams with any type of sense have figured out that they don't have to guard him. They can play two guys on this side of the floor where there's three offensive players and basically just totally, it's not even like they double team or they pack the paint. They just put extra attention specifically on Cat and JB. Josh Hart is a really good bench player. Could be a sixth man of the year. I know he set the record for triple doubles in a season with 8 for the Knicks franchise, passing the great Walt Clyde Frazier. But when you look at the construction of this starting lineup and the concept of being able to play 5 out, and if you look at Jalen Brunson and the places he likes to operate, and Karl Anthony Towns, the places that he likes to operate, they would benefit from having another shooter on the floor, or at least somebody who's somewhat dangerous. Josh Hart is being dared to take a three. There are some certain teams, specifically, again, the Celtics and the Thunder and the Lakers as well. They all geared their entire defensive strategy towards let's get the ball into Josh Hart's hands late in the shot clock. Make him shoot. And for some reason, throughout the entire season, the Knicks just decide not to try to make an adjustment. They don't try to get away from that. They don't try to do something different. They continue to run out the same starting lineup, which is typically the closing lineup. That lineup did give us 51 wins this season. But any Knick fan who is being honest has to say that overall this regular season was a disappointment. Last year we won 50. We went out, we got Mikal Bridges. We traded Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo for Karl Anthony Towns. We started off this season looking like one of the better teams in the league, especially one of the better offenses in the league. To get 51 wins when you have the injury luck that the Knicks have or have had so far, I think that's a disappointment. I think if you're being honest, you have to say, listen, as a Knicks fan who I've been around since the mid '90s, or at least I've at least really been into the team since then, and I saw some good years back then, obviously, and since then it's been few and far between for the Knicks to hit 50. This is the first time that we've had back-to-back 50-win seasons in, I don't know, what is it, 20 years? So you could look at it and you could say, well, hey, got to be thankful for 51 wins. And that's fine. I agree with that. We do need to be thankful for that. It's nice that as Knicks fans and at this organization has, rich people problems. That we're out here, being frustrated about 51 wins, but nobody can tell me going into this season with the trades that we made and the fact that we had all the injuries we did last year, but still won 50 games. Nobody can tell me that you would be happy with 51 wins, knowing that we were going to be the healthiest team in the NBA. Yes, we lost JB for a stretch, but we were able to hold the rope. Fairly sure we were 9-6 in those 15 games against some tough competition. So, hey, man, you can't tell me that this season was a success. Now, obviously, no matter what happens in the regular season, how you measure the season is going to have to do with how you finish it up. And we now have a series that many people felt like The Knicks could win easily. 5-1. The Vegas odds. Vegas odds 4-1. I'm sorry. And many people thought that we would, win this game in 5, win this series in 5. I saw some 6, but I saw a lot of Knicks in 5. I don't know what makes people. I'm fairly optimistic when it comes to my Knicks, but I don't know what made people so confident that we could beat this young, long, aggressive, physical Detroit team, because those are the things that we've struggled with all year. Detroit was being extremely physical, obviously aided by the referees. And I did think that the Knicks overall, their physicality, they didn't seem like they were just totally shying away from the moment as far as the physicality part in game 2. I thought that the Knicks did a pretty good job of being fairly physical, dealing with the Pistons' physicality, but we're just not built like them. We don't have the type of players that they do that want to play with that certain level of physicality. We just don't have it. The physicality, the grit, the attitude, these are all things that we've been missing this year throughout. And that is due to personnel. That is due to us losing Dante DiVincenzo, who we know it's not like he's some big imposing dude, but we know he ain't scared of nothing. He's willing to mix it up. He's willing to get face to face with you, nose to nose, and yap. And tell me a player on this Knicks roster that we have this year that has that same kind of energy. Julius, he's a surly type, sometimes to his detriment. One of the things that during his Knicks tenure was always called out, and people were always, criticizing him. And when Cat got here, I was one of the first people to say that his overall joy for the game and the way that he plays is something that's palpable and something that this Knicks team benefits from now having Cat and minusing Julius. I said that. And your boy was president of the Julius Randle fan club. I still got love for Julius. I realize his faults. Some of them got even more glaring once he was gone. And I like Cat. I think he's a better player than Julius. I think he's more valuable. I think Cat's had a very good year. Cat was excellent in game 1. Masterful. But when it comes down to it, this team is lacking dog. Isaiah Hartenstein, maybe not, the type to mix it up and, get into altercations with other players, but the way that he plays was absolute dog, absolute mixing it up and inspiring to his teammates to make them want to play harder and with more force, because Isaiah Hartenstein brings it every single night when it comes to the intensity. I'll still never understand the NBA, collective bargaining agreement, how it is that we weren't able to match any salary for a guy that came to our team, spent here 2 years, leveled up, but he's allowed to go somewhere else and get paid more money than we're allowed to offer him. Somebody, please, in the comments, please help me make that make sense. Is that some sort of parody bullshit? I'll never understand that, but those are the rules. And so now he's out in Oklahoma City on the best team in the league, and he's thriving. The thing is I really like Josh Hart. I love his game. Heart of the city, best player to wear that number 3 in New York. He's got a lot of John Starks in him. He can't shoot. He can't shoot. In today's NBA, being a guy who is 6'4", who can't shoot, can be a bit of a liability on the floor. Josh Hart is a off the bench, 29, 28 minute per game player and could be extremely valuable in that role. He's not a second in the league in minutes per game, closing every single game, playing well over 40 minutes. He's not that guy. And, I got kind of tricked. I tweeted after game 1 that I thought Thibs did a masterful job when it came to the rotations and manipulating the lineups. I now realized I was bamboozled by the fact that Josh Hart was in foul trouble. Because what we saw in game 2 was Josh Hart playing a rack of minutes. I want to say it was 40. Josh Hart's playing a ton of minutes, and Campaign plays only 4 minutes in the entire game, does not play at all in the second half. In game 1, Campaign was the most impactful player in the game. He played just over 4 minutes in the first half. Didn't really show you anything. In the fourth quarter, he played 10 minutes. At one point, Mikal Bridges couldn't get off the bench because you couldn't take Campaign out because of how well he was playing. He had 11 points, huge momentum buckets, was getting the crowd hype. He's face to face, talking shit to Beasley. He's mixing it up with Schroeder. It was a great performance by Campaign. I told my pops after the game I might get a Campaign jersey. And I don't even wear jerseys. And this guy only plays 4 total minutes in game 2. Got to make that make sense to me, man. Karl Anthony Towns does not attempt a shot in the entire fourth quarter. There's some pretty strong breakdowns on Twitter of why he was not able to get to the spots that he wanted to. I feel like some of it is on Towns. Towns has to be a little bit more aggressive, for sure. It's got to be a little bit more aggressive. I would like to see him demand the ball a little bit more. Towns is a player who typically makes the right play, not a ball hog. And as Stephen Jones Jr., Steve Jones 20 on X, had a nice breakdown where he shows in the fourth quarter how Tobias Harris and, whichever guard was guarding Brunson were able to basically stop Cat from either catching the ball or catching it in positions where he can, be successful. Some of that is facilitated by the fact that you don't have to guard Josh Hart. I just went to his page. I'm watching it right now. Josh Hart is out on the wing by himself. You have Brunson dribbling the ball against Beasley up top. Cat comes over to set him the high screen and roll, sets it pretty high. I mean, pretty high. Doesn't really get a screen on him. And then with the inability, the fact that you have one player who can then go in and help on Brunson, Cat's man doesn't have to go and help on Brunson. So it doesn't leave Cat wide open at the top of the key for the 3 where we know he is deadly. It's hard to play a guy who's 6'4" who can't shoot. Brunson also, him playing all but 6 seconds in the second half, and that is with him taking a trip to the locker room at some point. It was around a timeout break, so it ended up not being like, any type of, long, stint where he was out. He didn't change his shoes like he did, in game 1. He didn't, come up limping like he did in game 1, which is good to see. Brunson physically, he looked like he was, his normal self. But I've always said I'm a firm believer that if you want these guys to close games at the best of their ability, they need a blow here and there. I don't care what the scenario is. I don't care if it's the playoffs. It's not the best situation for the Knicks or for Jalen Brunson if he plays 11 minutes and 57 seconds in the third and the fourth quarter. So what does this all come back to? When we talk about these different things that it seems like strategically, seems like game plan wise, the Knicks fell short. They fell short in game 2. They fell short in game 1, but it got masked by a 21.0 run in the fourth quarter to bring the Knicks back from down 9 to winning the game 123 to 110. But as Rosande said before, the problem is the coach, and I'm going to say it again. Rosande, I've tried to fight this for a while. Thibs is my guy. I'm very thankful for everything that Tom Thibodeau has done. He brought us from the absolute dungeon, the depths of the NBA. We've won 50 games twice, 50 games in consecutive years. We've had I think there's only 1 year we've missed the playoffs during his tenure. He was just re-signed or extended 3 years in this past off season. Him and Brunson have a great relationship. A lot of the guys seem like they ride for him. They're always talking Thibs up, saying, what a good coach he is and how much he means to them. I think personally that Thibs is a top 10 to 12 coach in the league, somewhere in there. But I think it's been very clear throughout this year, especially when we play against some of those upper echelon teams. It's time for Thibs to go, man. It's hard to say that. I've danced around it. I've said things like, well, we need to bring in somebody who is more offensive minded as an assistant coach. I think we really see the loss of a Johnny Bryant. I think that he was more important to this team than people give credit. I think the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers have leveled up the way they have, and he is now their assistant head coach is something that everybody should take notice of. I would not be surprised if he is well sought after this offseason for any head coaching vacancies. And Thibs overall, his refusal to play the bench more minutes, his refusal to take guys out at the end of blowouts and maybe get them a few more minutes of rest. I mean, there was a time late in the season where we were up by like 25 with 2 minutes left. OG's in the game, Cat's in the game. And it was the first half of a back-to-back. We were playing the next day. Multiple times late in the season, you see Rick Brunson going to Thibs and trying to tell him, hey, man, can we get some of these guys out? Like, the game is pretty much in hand. Thibs is continuing to reference what Tracy McGrady did when he was on the bench for Houston as an assistant for Jeff Van Gundy, when he scored, I want to say it was like 13 points and 15 seconds. It was something. McGrady went off. Most NBA fans, they know the highlight. I've seen it a million times. It's Rockets versus Spurs, and he just goes nuclear and ends up bringing the Rockets back, and they win that game. Thibs says, I've heard him reference multiple times. I've seen that game. I was there for that game. I saw what happens. And so at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you secure the win. Thibs, Tommy. That was one game, bud. That was one game. And you're so scarred. You were on the winning side. But that was one game. And that does not mean that at the end of games, when your team is up by a ton, especially when you have a game the next night, that you should run these guys and have them out there up by 20 plus with a couple minutes left to go, playing upwards of 40 minutes. So that's one thing when it comes to Thibs. Thibs also likes to pack the paint. He talks about it all the time. You want to pack the paint, protect the paint. Modern NBA says you want to guard the three-point line. And the Knicks were last in the NBA in three-point percentage against. over the course of a season. This is not a blip on the radar. The Knicks also do not attempt enough threes. We do not run an offense where we are hunting threes. And quite frankly, most of the time, we're not really running an offense. The offense, especially in the fourth quarter and in the waning moments, is get Jalen Brunson the ball and everybody else just get out of the way. We used to do this with Julius. Seems like the Knicks have done this forever. Mike Woodson used to do it with Melo and it used to drive me crazy. There is very little off-ball action or elaborate multi-stepped sets in the Knicks offense. And if you watch enough NBA, you watch enough basketball, or even if you just watch the Knicks and you watch what other teams do against us, they are running sets. The Pistons are hunting Malik Beasley threes. The Pistons run a lot of pick and roll, but they also do a pick and roll on one side of the floor, and then they have somebody set a down screen with Beasley now behind the three-point line, and Cade is big enough and skilled enough and has the vision to make that pass over the defense, and now he's shooting a wide-open three. Luckily for the Knicks in these first two games, the Pistons have been off. I think that's one of the scariest things about this series, if you're a Knicks fan, is the fact that the Pistons haven't played their best game. The Pistons haven't shot well. If the Pistons shoot well in game two, they blow us out easy. It's not even close. There was a few times in that game where I was like, damn, man, these shots are going to start. I was hoping that I felt the same way for the Knicks. I was like, sooner or later, the shots are going to start falling. They never did. But they didn't for the Pistons either. And we still walk away losing by 6, losing home court advantage in the series. The other thing that Tom Thibodeau does is he refuses to adjust. I would like to say in game, but it's really over the course of the season, to how other teams are playing us. You see that they are not guarding Josh Hart, yet you continue to put him in the starting lineup first and foremost, but he's always in to finish games. And listen, in game one, Josh Hart made some huge plays down the stretch. In that 21-0 run, he was huge. The Pistons were turning the ball over a lot, and we were running. That's when Josh Hart is his most effective in the open floor. Once you get into the half court, I would argue that Josh Hart is extremely inefficient and somewhat of a liability. He will get you the occasional offensive rebound. He did average 9 rebounds this season. Josh Hart had a very good season. But Josh Hart's rebounds, again, this is coming from him. This is something that he has said. He does not box out. He grabs rebounds by looking at the trajectory and the path of the ball, anticipating, and a lot of the times he will come up with like a big offensive rebound in, around the free throw line. And averaging 9 rebounds when you are the team's power forward and you have OG and Bridges, who both almost look like they have no interest in rebounding most of the time. OG turned up the rebounding around when like Brunson got hurt and towards the end of the season. But overall, yeah, man, there's a lot of rebounds to be had, and Josh Hart's going to get some of them. I think when you look at both Cat's rebounding numbers this year and Josh Hart's numbers, I'm not saying they're not good rebounders, or that they didn't do a good job rebounding, but they're inflated by the fact that the rest of our team has no interest in rebounding. So somebody's got to grab it. And your center and your power forward are typically going to be the guys who do. Josh Hart needs to come off the bench, man. It's not going to – Thibs is not changing the starting lineup right now. He's not. I've seen a lot of people saying, we need to run the 2 big lineup. We should start Mitchell Robinson. I have zero faith, confidence, zero thought that Tom Thibodeau is going to bring Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup and put Josh Hart on the bench. There's no way. He loves Josh Hart. He trusts Josh Hart. I love Josh Hart. I trust Josh Hart. He's a 30 minutes per game off the bench, very effective player. Effective player. He is not a 44 minutes and definitely playing, the entire crunch time every single night. He's not that guy. And he would be more effective on the bench where he could be the de facto point guard, where he could get out and run, and we could have a defensive, lineup in the second in the second unit with a Josh Hart and a Mitch and them getting offensive rebounds. That actually I could see in short spurts working. Though I don't listen, I'm gonna contradict myself here because the Josh Hart Mitch minutes, the spacing is just dreadful. I think you need that to be something where they're really trying to play defense, get offensive rebounds, get out in the open floor, and maybe those offensive rebounds when you have those two guys with maybe, so let's say, a Deuce, a Shamit, and one of the starters, we can make up for our lack of three-point shooting and offensive efficiency with offensive rebounds, which lead to extra possessions. And as we saw last year, can lead to you having a good offensive net rating, even if you're not a team that hits a lot of threes. My other issue with Thibs is, and I guess it's kind of the same issue, he doesn't utilize players and get the most out of them. He doesn't maximize these guys. I'm sorry, but Mikal Bridges is not being maximized. It took Jalen going down for OG to really start getting maximized. And thus far in the playoffs, we've seen one really good half. He had 19 in the first half against Detroit in game one. And since then, we haven't seen the OG that we saw during those times where Bridges was where Jalen Brunson was injured. Karl Anthony Towns is not being optimized. He's not. And some of it is on Cat, but I need a coach who is going to get through to him. We cannot have Karl Anthony Towns shooting 2 threes in a game and shooting 0 shots an entire fourth quarter. You cannot tell me that Joe Mazzulla would let that happen, that JJ Redick would let that happen. He would be screaming at his guys, listen, first of all, you need to shoot the ball. Second of all, we need to get Cat the ball. If you take Josh Hart off the floor, you run a pick and roll, you're going to have a lot more success with that P&R between Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. We need to see more of that in general, but especially in crunch time. And I would love to see what it would look like without Josh Hart on the floor. Size 9. I'm a diehard Knick fan. I've always been a Knick fan, but I call it how it is. Those guys they're better coaches than Thibs. They are. And when it comes down to it, these guys and the elite coaches of the league, they make adjustments faster. They optimize their players. They play a more modern style of basketball. And what we've seen with this Knicks team is the league has adjusted. The Knicks have not been a very good team since, I don't know, like January 1st. Since January 1st, the Pistons have been a better team than the Knicks. Whatever metric you want to look at, however you want to measure it, the Pistons have been better than the Knicks since January 1st. It's just that simple. And what I think has happened more than anything else is that other teams have adjusted. They've seen the Knicks. They've seen what we do well and what we struggle with. And specifically, when it comes to Josh Hart, they've realized that we do not have to guard this guy. Just stay in front of him and on the open floor, challenge him at the rim, and then when he gets bottled up, be ready because he's going to try to jump in the air and throw a pass, and you can snatch that thing and go run the other way. I'm sorry, man. Like, other teams have adjusted. Other teams have figured the Knicks out, and the Knicks have not made the counter adjustment. You cannot have Karl Anthony Towns go the entire fourth quarter without a field goal attempt. And if you get to the 6-minute mark, let's go halfway through the fourth quarter, and he doesn't get a shot, you got to call a timeout and you got to say, we must get Cat the ball. Josh, come sit next to me, throw Deuce in, and then have, or Campaign in. I mean, Campaign was only the most important player in the first game, and he gets 4 total minutes. Nobody can make that make sense to me. I know that Campaign is a bit of a streaky player, and sometimes he's got it, sometimes he doesn't. But you can't figure that out in 4 first half minutes that, okay, he don't have it tonight, so he's not playing the rest of the game. When he had 11 points in the fourth and put this team on his back, got the crowd back into it, got the team back into it, demoralized the Pistons. Come on, man. And Josh Hart, the other thing about Josh Hart is he's not a great defender. He's an okay defender. He's okay. He plays hard. We know that. But he gambles too much and he's out of position. And the lack of communication between him and Jalen Brunson on the Schroeder 3. I mean, guys, you guys have been playing together since college. I don't know exactly whose fault that was. I know Brunson tried to take the blame for it in the post-game presser. Personally, when I look at it, it looks like it's Josh Hart's fault. You got to make this. You got to make the switch, and you got to get out on this guy. Can't let Schroeder shoot. Oh, just walk into a wide open 3 in the most important moment of the game. We just tied the game up. It's 94-94. And we let this guy hit a wide open 3. Bridges comes down. He misses his 3. The game's essentially over right there. My other issue with Thibs is after the game, he says that, he talked about the officiating, which, I agree. I thought the officiating was piss poor. But then he talks about the fact that we were out rebounded and that's why we got killed. And yes, we definitely did not have a great night on the boards. We got out rebounded 48-35. The Pistons had 12 offensive rebounds. That's too many. Knicks only had 7. But if we're getting out rebounded like that, and again, Josh Hart will get you some rebounds, but they're not the, hey, let's finish out this possession by boxing our guy out and get the rebound. No, they're much more the let's get the loose rebound. A lot of them offensive rebounds. He doesn't box out. He watches the ball and he'll get that rebound around the free throw line. He's not getting those tough rebounds out of the paint. Let me not say that. He does sometimes. And Josh Hart is a pretty good rebounder. He's not a 9 rebounds a game guy. He is a 9 rebounds a game guy because the Knicks have no rebounders. So therefore he has to be able to get, somebody has to get him. And so when he makes that comment, my question would be, so maybe we should play Mitch more. Mitch played 1 minute and 27 seconds in the fourth quarter. We all went into the postseason saying, hey, we've been ramping Mitch up. We're going to see the lineup with the 2 bigs, with Mitch at the 5 and with Karl Anthony Towns at the 4. We saw it for a stint in the first game. And I honestly, if I remember correctly, the plus minus was a minus. It wasn't that good in that particular stretch. But overall, I would like to see that lineup more, especially against a Pistons team who plays big. This is the time, if any, to run that lineup. If we are getting out rebounded, get the 2 biggest guys we have on the team on the floor at the same time. Let Karl Anthony Towns be a 4 where his size and his defense is much more of a weapon than it is as a 5 because he's not a great rim protector. He's pretty good at keeping guys in front of him. I think he's played pretty good defense. The defense he played in the first game, especially, down the stretch, one of the stops he made on Duren where he just went up straight, didn't get the foul, and it looked like Duren was going to have an absolute layup. I've liked what I've seen from Cat. He has to be more assertive, but we have to force feed him the ball. It has to be part of our game plan. And that brings me to Jalen Brunson. JB, you are my favorite Knick in quite some time. You are the best Knick in quite some time. You took this franchise to a whole nother level. You're extremely clutch. I love watching you play. I love how you play. I don't think you get the respect that you deserve from the referees. Today, he was named the NBA's Clutch Player of the Year. Well deserved. At the end of a game, if there's a shot that needs to be taken, I'd like to see Jalen Brunson take it. And you know what? Some of it is on the coach because Tom Thibodeau, he seems to basically just call Jalen get the ball and everybody else get out of the way the entire fourth quarter. And a lot of the entire game. But JB, hey man, you're a point guard. You got to do a better job of getting some of these other guys involved. And I'm not just saying that as some blanket statement like, oh, you're a point guard, you need to do more of this. Da, da, da. No, I'm talking about specifically. There's times where I am watching the game and Jalen Brunson gets a pick and roll, cat's wide open, and Brunson is going and trying to work in the paint. He's going up against two guys sometimes, and Cat is standing there at the 3-point, and he is wide open. Give him the ball. Let Cat shoot. He's elite. Some people say he's the greatest big man shooter of all time, and I won't argue with it. We need him shooting more than 2 or 3 threes a game. We need him shooting like 7 threes a game. And we need JB sometimes to just quickly to not be looking to get his own thing off. But when he makes that pick and roll and Cat's right there, just give it to him. Just give it to him. We need to run more plays for OG where he's getting the ball on the move. We saw the ability. We saw the bag. When Brunson was out, we saw OG get into the paint. We saw OG pull up for the midi. We saw OG hitting threes. I know he was 0 for 4. I know he wasn't hitting threes in that game. But what are we doing to try to feature him? He's 0 for 2. This guy scored 25 points in 4 consecutive games, scored 20 points in I don't know how many consecutive games when Jalen Brunson was hurt. And we get him 2 shots in the entire fourth quarter. Tom Thibodeau, that's on you. Jalen Brunson, that's on you too. I know Bridges hasn't scored a ton in this series, but I've actually liked how he's played. He's played with force. He hasn't been, loosey-goosey with the ball. His defense has been pretty strong. He has a hard time dealing with Cade because Cade is just too strong. But, I think that Mikhail's played okay. Would I have loved if he hit that 3 at the end of the game? Sure. Is there a lot of people out here saying, Ragu hits that? Well, you know what? Ragu missed that 3. Isaiah Hartenstein got the offensive rebound, and it got kicked back out to him, and he got a second chance, and then he hit it. And, Mikhail has been fairly clutch. He had a very clutch midi in game 1. He had the buzzer beater against the Blazers. Mikhail, I'm not too mad at him from what I've seen from him this season. Would I like to see more? Yes. Again, I don't think he's being utilized to the best of his ability. I don't think that we're doing everything that we possibly can to get him the ball in the spots as much as we need to. And I just don't think the overall offense that we run, it's like we do this thing where Brunson, he dribbles in to about the elbow, and if he's not there, then Mikhail comes and kind of gets it on the wing and then fades to the corner. You could see that the Pistons, they scheme that. They know that. They almost beat him to the spot like a defensive back. I'm sorry, man. I hate to say this. Thibs has got to go. He's got to go. Hey, okay. So let's just say that this game is a wake-up call, that we come out in game 3 and moving forward, because to me, it's not just about whether or not we win or lose the series. I don't think anybody believes right now that we have any chance of beating Boston in the second round. If we get there, I'm sure I'll somehow mind fuck myself into thinking that it's a possibility, because that's just who I am. I'm an optimistic guy when it comes to my Knicks. But if we don't end up getting out of the first round, I think Thibs absolutely has to go. Even if we do, but we just outplay a team that we are more talented than. Don't get it twisted. We're more talented than the Pistons. The team that has outplayed us 7 out of 8 of the quarters in this series, we are more talented than them. But if we don't come out of the first round, Thibs, it's got to be gone. Even if we do, but it's just because we play better and guys hit shots and we just out talent this team, I still think Thibs has to go. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Thibs takes what has happened in these last 2 games. Somebody can get through to him. He does some soul searching and we start to put out the lineups and have the type of game plan and mindset that will allow us to maximize the talent that we have on this team. Like my man Paul York said, he says, fire Thibs, can't handle our talent. Yeah, we have a lot of talent. We have more talent than the Detroit Pistons do. But it doesn't matter if we are running an offense from the late 90s. And I don't see Thibs all of a sudden deciding to change. We've seen this before. Thibs is a guy who gets your team. He'll get them from the basement, but he can't get them to the top floor. And I'm just starting to believe that no matter what, we're never going to be able to be an elite team with Tom Thibodeau as the head coach. And it pains me to say that because I like Thibs, man. I really do. I've always liked Thibs. I've been in I remember him as an assistant. And I've always thought he was a hard-nosed guy. I thought he was a great defensive coach. I thought there was a lot of things to like about Thibs. But you know what? This reminds me of something that is going on, or something that has gone on with one of the other teams that I root for. If you watch He Did This to Me, the show that I do every week with my dad, we are two, a father and son who are Knicks, Jets, and Mets fans. And as Mets fans, I think that the Mets felt like they leveled up and they had a huge upgrade in overall coaching and just overall professionalism when they got Buck Showalter. Buck came, he had a great season with the Mets. Great season. They end up getting hawked down by the Atlanta Hawks at the end of the Atlanta Hawks, the Atlanta Braves at the end of the season. And then they end up getting bounced by the San Diego Padres in the wild card. Very disappointing end to what was overall a pretty good season. And the Mets decided to move on. And the Mets bring in an unknown, basically, Carlos Mendoza, young guy. Buck Showalter, been around forever, has gotten a lot of teams, from the basement, but not quite to the top floor. Sound familiar? Buck Showalter, old school guy, knows his baseball, has his instincts. And then he just isn't able to get him over the hump. And you bring in a younger guy who's more into analytics, and don't get me wrong, Mendy definitely works off a field too, but knows the analytics a little bit more, leans on that a little bit more. And you see the type of success that the Mets had last year after a slow start, getting all the way to within one game of the World Series. And then you see the type of success that the Mets are having this year at 18-7 and tied for the best record in baseball. Swept the Phillies today, by the way. Shout out to my Mets. I think this is a Buck Showalter situation. I think this is a situation where this guy has gotten us as far as he can get us. He is not, this leopard is not going to change his spots. And the Knicks will never get to the next level with Tom Thibodeau as the coach. I hate to say it, man. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. I hope somehow, some way we come out in game 3 and these things that seem to be obvious to so many Knicks fans. Check out my guys XJ and Jeff over at Hot Hand Theory, they break it down. They've been talking about this same stuff all season. And those are my guys. I've had some conversations back and forth with them on X where, I don't necessarily totally agree and I don't always want to put everything on Thibs. And I don't want to put everything on Thibs. But at the end of the day, you got to take a step back and you got to look at these things through an objective lens. We do not play a modern style offense. We do not play a modern style defense. We play these guys too many minutes. And we don't make adjustments. Those things at the end of the day, they're all on the coach, man. I'm sorry, but Thibs has got to go. It's your boy Nick on Knicks.